Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Okay, Youth Worker Nation, we've got Larry and Amanda Stevens back together today, and we're going to talk a little bit about family and about their relationship and how they got together. So
how fitting for 10 years.
I know.
Is this 10 years?
Yeah.
Next month. 2 weeks it'll be 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
I know. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's been good though.
It has been.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
It's like ministry. Marriage is like ministry. Hard but good. Hard but good.
That is true.
Yes.
Tell us how you guys met. You both tell your versions of how you met.
Well, I shared mine earlier before, but why don't you go ahead and you can start.
Okay. I feel like I'm on a dating game or something.
I'm curious to know if your version is the same as mine.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we met a crew. We were working on the communications team for the campus ministry at our headquarters in Orlando. Larry was staff, and I was a reporting intern, a return intern reporting as staff. And we were serving together on the writing team. And so we had a fun team, a bunch of single staff at headquarters, and we were just friends. And headquarters was kind of, this nucleus of single staff with crew that would hang out and do that stuff. And although I don't think our circles kind of meshed a lot, but basically I was late 20s at the point that the Lord kind of intersected us, and I would go up to the prayer room every Tuesday at headquarters because I was convinced the Lord was just not going to move on my behalf with a future husband. I think I remember you even praying for my future husband on one of those Mexico trips, or even anointing me with oil.
Wow.
I remember that, I think, like in the chapel there. So a lot of laboring went in for you. And every Tuesday, I would take my Bible up to the prayer center because that was my fasting and praying day over lunch. I was late 20s, and my staffer, the woman who trained me, that is, you hear the effects of our marriage right in the other room, our 4 kids. But I remember she told me in regards to prayer, she said, I might be 100 years old and single, but it won't be because I did not knock on the door of heaven. And so that just, when Marie said that, I thought, you know what, that's going to be me. And I'm going to start fasting. I'm going to step it up a notch. And I remember specifically one day walking through the lobby, going to the elevators and passing Larry. And he's like, hey, Amanda. And I remember thinking, I can't be bothered. I have to go pray for my future husband. And so I had my Bible, and I'd go up in my little prayer closet and just, where is he, Lord? You've forgotten about me. Maybe he's in Africa. I don't know. Bring him back on furlough or something. And he was sitting right beside me in the cubicle right beside me. So that's how the Lord kind of prepared my heart. And then Larry's dad passed in a plane crash. And it was after that he started initiating just these touch points with me. Like emailing me, do you want to grab dinner after work or something? And so that's really kind of how our friendship kind of started, was just him just kind of asking to hang out. And so we kind of became friends. And he hung out at my apartment, and we worked on projects together a lot at work. So there was already this natural connecting point.
Yeah.
But we had just never seen each other that way.
I don't know, Larry. Had you already seen her that way? Before she got a clue, or you're kind of like going,
Your friends. You said something about your
Right,
friends
I like
with
this
your
girl.
friends, but I was clueless about that. But for me, the point was
Larry did not answer my question. Did you know that you were starting to fall for her before she even showed a sign of it?
I enjoyed spending time with Amanda, and that increased over time. But she didn't tell you, but when we would go over to her place, we went to watch The Bachelor.
We did.
And so that was
How
something we
ironic.
enjoyed doing, and it was fun to do that together.
And we were
So-
connecting on one of the missions trips to Mexico
Mhm.
when I went, because remember you helped me stuff a prayer letter that I was asking for prayer about. And so there was
But
time.
I think for me, when I knew there's something more, was when we had a fight outside of Panera. As we were having our little argument, we weren't even dating. I realized, wow, she can hold her own. I mean, she's pretty good at this. I mean, she's a pretty good. She's
Fighter.
a well-reasoned argument. You know, she's really good in the midst of, her emotions. And that was something that I thought, wow, that's very attractive.
You like a good challenge and a good fight. don't you?
he likes a good
She
fight.
can hold her own.
Yeah,
She
he
can
does.
hold her own in the middle of an argument. And she still can, actually. So, but I guess my version of the story is that, she's not allowed to share, but I will, is that I was on a secret mission through the CIA. And on mission, I ran into her on one of my special assignments in Orlando, which you just now found that out. I wasn't. I'm not allowed to really disclose, my real assignment after
Identity.
10 years.
Oh,
And so since it's our 10-year anniversary, I can finally disclose to you I am a former special CIA agent.
Really? Wow.
And here,
Yeah,
it's
and
on
you
our
were my
podcast,
assignment.
so that's great.
Wow, and now you're opening it up to the whole
The
world.
whole world
right.
knows now.
Wow.
No going back. Your retirement's complete.
And what does that mean for the kids? They got to get new names, take them out of public school.
Yeah, I'm sure they want to
How
be
many
on
times have
mission
you
too.
changed our names? This is kind of normal, isn't it? Go ahead.
Well, I kind of knew when we were hanging out, and you made a statement about ministry. Do you remember sitting on the couch in
I
my
do.
apartment?
Yeah.
And I'd have to go back to my journal, but he said something about wanting to do ministry with me. I think we were doing a summer project together. I can't remember. I mean, I think my hair stood on end, and I just remember staring at him thinking, have you read my prayer journal?
I did actually.
And I would not put it past you.
No.
Oh, you did, didn't you?
You remember?
I thought it was like this God ordained moment, and you had been rummaging through my prayer journal.
You remember the spiritual. Here's how I knew, and I just remember like when we first held hands.
I remember that too when we were watching the movie.
Dancing with Wolves.
Yes.
Kevin Costner.
Yes.
That was
That'll
Yes.
do it every time.
I reached
Yeah.
over and it started out with I held her finger
Oh.
and she accepted.
I didn't reject you.
She didn't reject my finger.
Well, the thing is, and you know what that makes me think of too, and I know I'm kind of getting into the serious part because that is the fun part, but it kind of reminded me because we were thinking about that apartment, and it reminded me of when you and the guys serenaded me. Because Larry was with me during a hard time when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, stage 4 endometriosis. And so we had really only been dating not that long. And all of a sudden I was kind of thrust in these doctor's appointments and told I would never have kids and told I needed to have surgery. And there was enough of that hook, like the Lord had given me that hook that day with the praying that I thought, I kind of paid attention and I thought, oh, okay, maybe he's more than a friend, because I thought that's pretty word for word out of my prayer journal for my future husband. Anyway, to make a long story short, he just walked through that really awkward time too for a single guy who a girl has kind of these issues, a little on the private side.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was just amazing. Had my surgery here, and I was recovering at my house and my parents' house, and he shows up and with 60 potted plants that you put on my parents'
I
deck.
called them the quiet time flowers.
My quiet time flowers. Yeah.
Yeah.
showed up and just unloaded all of these potted flowers on my parents' deck.
Because flowers, they die, they wither, but the plants, they grow and flourish. It was very symbolic of our relationship. So,
It was awesome. I mean, it was very awkward because he was walking me through these issues where my doctors were telling me things about, needing to start a family or doing things that I thought, well, I'm single, and then trying to process something with a single guy, and he handled it all really well. And
it was
it was really bad because they put me on medication that made me a loony girl.
It
Though
was very strange. I remember when I was wearing sandals.
I know it wasn't my best moment.
You said you couldn't respect me.
It was
because I was wearing sandals. I thought, oh my.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
The medication was like, ooh. It gave me it was really hard on us. We kind of didn't make it through that.
But I do remember when me and my roommates went, we were on our way to see a movie. We went to serenade you in your apartment. And after seeing, I don't know, You've Lost That Loving Feeling. And when you come out in tears crying, I thought that wasn't how I planned it.
Oh, this poor Larry.
And then my roommates, they left me. They said, oh.
And he did not know that I had just signed away to have a hysterectomy. It was like I was having my surgery the next couple days, and I had signed paperwork that said I'm okay if I wake up and they've had to do a hysterectomy. And I'm a 28-year-old single girl. So when I hear this singing, I'm like kneeling beside my bed, just basically giving my future to the Lord. And just saying, I have no idea what you're going to do. I remember saying the Psalms out loud to myself because I did not believe truth. I did not believe that God had something good for me. And so I remember picking Psalms and having to say it out loud to myself. And then I heard this singing outside, and I was so emotional, and I was just so caught up in my time with the Lord. And there was our friends were out there, and Larry and I was like, oh, there's Larry. And I just opened up, and I was like, and the guys were like, oh my God.
We're out of here.
They were like, I felt really bad for Larry. I was like, awkward.
God's got a sense of humor, doesn't he? I think God's going, oh, this is so funny.
He's like, oh, you got a loony one, Larry.
We're gonna test this
buddy.
boy.
Well,
anyway.
so we've had 10 good years, Doug.
So it's been ups and downs.
Great, and I married into a great family. Amanda's got a great mom and dad.
As Dad walks by the camera.
Yes. He told me never to come back until I brought my golf clubs.
Oh.
So I realized, there were some conditions to be part of the family.
The first time Larry met the family was during Hurricane Charlie.
Yeah.
So I showed up for the family dinner and meet the parents. He brings my parents coffee, all dressed up. We're expecting to have a nice little visit with my parents and go back to Orlando. And then Hurricane Charlie happens, and he ends up stranded here, boarding up my dad's house, going to Home Depot, putting up shutters on my dad's house, and we ended up with no electricity.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
And you stayed for a while. So that was his first introduction to the Hitchcock family. And then my sister, and going to pick up Valerie in that flea-infested home. Do you remember with the fleas? That was so bad. Yes. So
now you're drained.
No, but then I was thinking about our wedding, and my brother-in-law passed.
Yes.
6 weeks before we got married. So then, so what was going through my mind is I was kind of thinking about meeting, and then flash forward to getting engaged, and then I thought about, losing Mike in August, and our wedding was at the beginning of October.
Yeah.
And so, and you were there with us when all of that happened right there at the hospital, and so.
Roller coaster. And I'm not so sure that ministry people don't have more roller coasters than the average. Part of it because we have to relate with people. So I think it's so fun, and people need to hear this, that all of these roller coasters up and down as you went through, because they're going to go through that. People are going through it, or they're going to go through it. Or they think they're crazy because they went through it, and no one else has ever gone through what I've gone through.
Yes.
but you guys have, and you are not alone.
Well, and I think that's part of it is like I have a former staff woman with Crew who I call her my mommy mentor. And so she processes our marriage, you know, and so she was our wedding planner. So she kind of like, you know, you guys have seen us from the beginning, you know, and
Right.
and I process with her, and she'll say things, you know, because I'll say it was 10 years, and then all of a sudden things start, I'm like, 10 years. And they just celebrated 30. And she's like, yeah, did you think you'd be in a different place now? Because she and Chris, she's like, I pictured 30. She's like, I thought we would be in a different place. And to me, that just normalized it. And so Susan kind of does that for me. She kind of brings it into the light. Where so often I think the enemy says, oh, you're the only ones, you know, who struggle with this. Or, you know, you fight too much, you know, because on Facebook, everybody celebrates anniversaries, and it is like, you are my best friend, and I am so glad the Lord brought you into my life, and I just love the story that He's written for us, and I cannot wait for 300 more years with you, you know?
I like to actually send little comments, liar.
Yeah. Well, and then you feel defeated, right? Because then I
I'm
read
interviewing
that,
your friends.
and I'm just like, wow, they're rocking the marriage thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is...
I get depressed when I.
I'm like, that's so great. They married their best friend, and it's just been like roses, and they want to do 10 more years, 30 more years. And some days I say, well, this is great, but I don't know if I can do one more day. You know, you have days like that. And
Sure you do. Absolutely.
And so,
Those are the days people need to hear about. Right.
Yes. And sometimes you're just like, oh.
You should start blogging.
Blogging our days.
Yeah, getting real.
But anyway, like you were saying, I think it's
Blogging
good to have women in my life who are real with me.
Yeah.
And you have to be sensitive to marriage because you want to respect your spouse, but who normalizes it. And
Well, you want to okay some of that.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't air out all the dirty laundry.
No, you want to okay that, but if it's okay with your spouse, air the dirty laundry, because in this world of blogging and podcasting, the dirty laundry is where things get done.
Well, and it fights the enemy, right? Because the enemy does want to do it. He wants to back us in the corner and turn out the light and just say, you're defeated. Your marriage stinks.
Yeah.
But
Everybody else is like ready for 300 more years of their marriage.
but I think that there is wisdom in, you don't want to just tell all, because you want to honor your husband, honor your wife.
Yeah.
Well, you
So
want
you
to
don't
tell the
wanna-
good things as well as the bad.
Well, and you want to share them, I think, framed within the process of the Lord, and where He, like, leaning into the Lord. You're not just kind of griping. You're saying, this is the realness of marriage, and this is how the Lord stepped in, or how we're leaning into the Lord in this time.
Right.
Framing it.
And if you are
that way.
blogging or podcasting, you all have to be on the same page. If
Yeah.
one of you or both of you aren't comfortable with it, that's not where you
can't
go.
do it.
Right.
You can't go
No.
there. Right.
No. It's
Right.
there's things that I don't say.
It's not a share and ask later policy.
No, that's not the policy. Some people say that with it's better to ask forgiveness, not in marriage.
Right. That
It's better to ask permission.
Yes, ask permission
Yeah, in
instead of.
But, the family life weekend getaways were really good. We've done 2 of those, haven't we?
Yeah.
Those were good. And then,
Yeah.
and it's great to live close to, our in-laws have been really, your mom and dad have been great. Sometimes I say they kind of saved our marriage, just because they watch the kids while you and I can get away and go on a date night, or, get away for our second honeymoon. So
But I
it's great
think
to
we're
have
still.
support
It is.
you know.
This mom and dad have been huge.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we are still learning, and we're trying to figure out how to stay connected in the midst of kids
crazy life.
between 8 and 4, and what that looks like of knowing our marriage needs to come first, and communicating that to them. I mean, you know what it's like, but there's this constant tension of how are we intentional about each other when
Right.
there's like chaos going on around us.
And you guys, you're covering, I thought it was about 1,600 campuses, And
Yeah.
you're talking about virtual reality and all these things that you do, and you have to fly around the country occasionally, or quite often actually, compared to most of our worlds. And then, right?
He does very well though. He's a committed family guy. He has to be gone, but he could be gone so much more.
And the question is, how, because there's others who do this, not like you do, not at that level, but if you at this level can handle this, you've already told us part of it, your parents, support system, you got that support system with your children, 4 kids. I remember my wife, I started adding up the months of each year that my wife was a single parent. And if it wasn't for her parents being in the area and a brother, and it was unbearable at times. It was unbearable. So go there and tell us what else happens. How do you, at this high velocity, you wouldn't consider yourself that, but we who are on the outside looking in and know you're in a high velocity ministry. And if it was business, it would be a high velocity business. And your marriage is doing well. It may not feel like it at times, so tell us how. Tell us what else. What else is going on that helps bring you guys back to center?
Well, I think you have to be committed, to marriage, to your wife, to your kids, to your family. And so
I think you have some strong anchors that helped. And this is one of the things that attracted me to Larry. When we got married and I looked up at the men standing in our wedding, I mean, solid men of God. And I looked at my girls and they are my best friends and they're great. And they've come from different avenues of my life. Some of them might walk with the Lord, some might not. But when I looked at those men, I knew that he was solid because he has men solid in his life. And each one of those men are rocks. And he continues, it's just like a gift to just, you have men in your life who are just like these, like your supervisor at work and Mark Stewart, the man who kind of co-leads a Bible study with him. I can tell, like when he goes to Bible study, he leads a men's Bible study at the crack of night on Tuesday mornings. I can tell when you've been with those men. There's a different feel about you. There's a different way you interact with me. And so I think it's having those people in our lives. And like with me, with Susan, when I connect with Susan and she normalizes things, I think that part of that helps us individually. And we're still in process. I mean, one of the huge things that we just really, which I think is kind of interesting how the Lord does it, is my love language is communication, is quality conversation. And I married an internal processor.
In my book, I talk about inside thinkers and outside thinkers.
Okay.
And I'm an outside thinker, and I'm a nerve inside thinkers. My wife's an inside thinker.
Oh.
And so,
Do I do that
there's
to
a
you?
difference. There's a difference.
There is, yeah.
Inside thinkers people love because when they speak something, it's already processed. Outside thinkers are processing while they're speaking.
Right. Things come to us as we talk.
Yeah, and it's a style. I had a pastor tell me one time, he said, Doug, I just want you to realize I'm an outside thinker. Oh, I'd
That's
never heard
helpful.
that term before. So once he said that, I started internalizing and able to say, okay, that there's a couple types of people that process differently, and here is what they are, what I think they are.
That's
And
good.
so- yeah.
That
And
is
so,
helpful.
okay, favorite date movie? Or what's
Well-
one of the movies you've had was your favorite date?
Well, I still have the movie ticket to Hitch
Well, that was a
that
good
we
one.
saw in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have both of our tickets. So that was a great movie. That was fun to watch with
Still a good movie.
Will
Yeah.
Smith, and
Yeah.
that was good.
I'm not a big movie person, so.
But we
So
did-
what is the idea of your best date?
Well, we have different.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about like for a 10-year anniversary, he always jokes and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Paris. I want to take you someplace, And he's so resourceful. I would totally not put it past him. That's why I have to say no. But for me, just being at home And him talking to me is like the perfect date.
So we're gonna get a board.
I told him
we're gonna write down. We're gonna brainstorm what we're gonna do
for 10
our
years.
10
Yeah.
years.
But like, what did we do? We had something recently. Oh, I know. What was it that I was so fired up about? And you came home. What happened? And you were. I was like ready to like snap your head off.
I don't know. Which
The
time?
wakeboarding thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Larry decided he wanted to take the kids wakeboarding, which is why we're so into it here. It's like a new thing.
Yeah.
And Larry gets these grand ideas, and I typically come along, but I have to be really aligned to him. Anyway, it's a certain amount of money. I just wasn't completely aligned. I didn't want to spend the money on that. And he was coming home, and I had my speech like all ready, and I was savoring my speech, and I was like, okay, he's gonna get it. I know I'm right. Like my flesh was coming out, and I was like, I am right, and he's gonna feel it, And so I'm folding laundry, on the bed, and he comes in, and I'm like, I'm ready. I have my boxing gloves on, and he's like, okay. But we had been just exchanging wordy texts,
Yes.
so I think he kind of knew my frame of mind before he came home. But he walked in, and he said, I'm gonna take a shower, and then we're gonna talk. Well, already I was like, what? I was like, really? Which was good, but I was like, already. I was ready for my fight,
Let's fight now.
I was like, I'm ready. So I was like, okay, well, he at least knows he's acknowledging that. But anyway, he took a shower and came back out. He sat in his chair, and he talked to me. And as you can tell, I'm saying this because this is not a norm we have. And so we're very much in process, because this is our Achilles heel in our marriage, is communication.
That's why it takes time.
10 years.
You get better.
10 years, and it's my love language. But anyway, I told him that. I said, he sat down, we talked it through. I mean, he completely diffused my anger. I said, I feel so loved right now. And I was like, that is like, my love tank is so full because he spent the time to talk to me, and it was a very good conversation. And with it, I was like, that's my love language. Like that makes me, so my date night, like that would be perfect date night. It's just talking and communicating and getting my internal processor to be an outward processor for a little while. Like
5 Love Languages, Youth Worker Nation, 5 Love Languages,
Yes.
Gary Chapman.
Yes, and what was another one that somebody gave us? Love and Respect. That was another good one that people gave us when we got married. But yeah, so that's.
And I had you guys actually do the session with my children, Chris and Samantha, before they got married.
And we still are wanting.
Oh, you
to
will,
connect
you
with
will.
them.
But that one meeting that was so huge for them. You're at their wedding.
Oh, that was huge for us to
That was a
see
great
them get
wedding.
married.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Certainly
And I can't
times.
believe it's been a year
I know.
too.
I know.
You should interview them like a year after they get married. What new things are they?
Yeah, that would be
Learning
fun.
about each other.
I know.
Well, I'll tell you what, in 3 years, I think we'll interview your children.
Now that will be interesting.
And I am going to interview my children. When the time's right, we're going to set it up so I can interview my children and spouses and my wife.
That's really good
See
stuff
what the
coming
process has been, the ups and downs and all that. Right. And so, listen, thank you so much. I know your time's limited. I have taken all of your day as much as I
Thanks, Doug.
absolutely could.
Oh, it's been fun.
Well, fun for me. And this is, people are going to listen to this for decades, so this is good stuff, and they're going to need it, and you were there for them. So thank you.
Thank you for including
Larry,
Thanks,
any way
Doug.
they can get in touch with you that you would not mind people that wanted to write in to get in touch with you with? We already gave away Amanda's.
Sure. If you want to, you can email me at larry.stevens at crew.org, larry.stevens, STEPHENS, at cru.org.
Okay, guys, we're out.
Thanks, Doug.
Wait, say goodbye, Youth Worker Nation.
Bye, Youth Worker Nation. It's been fun being with you.
See you guys.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.